What does masculinity mean to you?
So for me, masculinity also is actually trying to break the stereotypes of what is a man supposed to be. I feel in our society that boys are asked to be men before they're ever allowed to be human.
The way you are, Nikhil, just your personality, it exudes authenticity, and that's something that's really rare.
Let me say, it's taken me many years of therapy to get to this place. It's not something that I was born with. So it is, I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety when I turned around 29-30. I was working at Yashraj at that time, ended up quitting, taking therapy, taking a sabbatical, trying to figure my own head out. And that was possibly the best decision I took, because it led me to starting Yuvaa, but more importantly, it led me to having a little bit of a control over my story. There has always been a burden put on women by men to do the emotional labor for men. You know, that I'm feeling bad, so I need a woman in my life to listen to me.
You've given a perspective here. Wow, emotional labor.
Does the film industry in any way perpetrate some sort of anxiety? I'm not, because all of us are part of that industry. Or was it?
Very much so.
Oh.
I feel like we are very reductive about the role of the impact of entertainment in our lives. If fashion and music and everything else is inspired by art,
And cinema is
yeah,
too.
how can you say that our societal norms are not inspired by it?
I want to ask you, Nikhil, men are feminists too,
Correct.
right? For
The
everyone.
idea of feminism was that everyone is equal.
That's
and
right.
it still is. But feminism has been weaponized now as a term which could either mean that this is anti-men or it could mean this is pro a certain kind of woman who's a man-hating woman.
Love lingo, love lingo, love lingo. Suddenly made it to love lingo.
I was at a party recently. It was an intimate gathering. A couple of drinks later, everyone gets chatty. We were talking about cinema, art, humanity, feminism, and that was that. A little later, a gentleman comes up to me and says, "I thought you'd hate men." I wasn't offended because the way he said it was a little polite, but I asked him, "Why would you assume that?" And he replied immediately, "Just an assumption." This got me thinking. Any woman who doesn't want to have kids, doesn't want to get married, or is fiercely independent is considered a misandrist. But I love men.
Right, and I was also at that party, and I remember you talking about this incident in the car. Oh, well, we all have preconceived notions about each other. My perspective about men is always going to be from the point of view of a woman. The first and initial exchange of a girl child with a man is most likely her father, her brother, or any other male figure in her household. And that, to a great extent, becomes her understanding, and she comes with a perception about men through that initial experience. And traditionally speaking, growing up, I learned that men are protectors, providers, and they exude strength. But does this fit in today's societal framework?
Let's ask the man himself. Hi, this is Ursula Qureshi.
Hi, this is Just Sagu. Today's episode on Love Lingo is Deconstructing Men. We have a man who is in full cognizance of who he aspires to be as a man. He has dismantled toxic masculinity and is unafraid of embracing his vulnerabilities. Nikhil Taneja, welcome to Love Lingo. Let's hear it from the man himself. What does masculinity mean to you?
Hi, first of all, Ursula and Jess, thank you so much for the very kind introduction. Ever since you all reached out to me, I ended up going through a bunch of the stuff that you have done in the past, and I loved it. I love the warmth that you do the work with. I love the vibe that you do it with. And I know it's taken us some time to get here, but I'm very, very happy and excited to be here. This is not a conversation many folks have, and it's not a conversation that people, when they have, are able to have as authentically as possible. Because I love what you said. You know, there is always, especially when it comes to most genders, look at other genders from the perspective of gender itself.
Absolutely.
You know, it's very rare that you look at people as just human beings.
Exactly.
And a lot of that is because of the conditioning we have all had growing up.
Right.
No matter what gender you are, man, woman, any other gender. We are not allowed to be human when you're growing up. So for me, masculinity also is actually trying to break the stereotypes of what is a man supposed to be.
Right.
That for me is a positive version of masculinity, because I think there is a whole conversation about toxic masculinity, and the reason it is toxic is because I feel in our society that boys are asked to be men before they're ever allowed to be human. I feel like they don't get the opportunity to tap into their humanity, to understand who we are as boys, what can our lives be, what can our dreams and aspirations be. And I know it's very much similar for women as well, but there is a conversation about how oppressed women are because of patriarchy.
Right.
We don't even realize that boys and men are also oppressed by it. Of course, because boys and men also benefit from it in many ways.
Right.
Having said that, does every man need to have power? Does every man need to be, the man of the house? Does he need to, take forward the family name? All those burdens that are put on boys,
Right.
where they are said and told that if you don't reach your full potential as that powerful stoic man that the world looks up to, then your life is worthless. Those burdens actually are the reason that masculinity becomes so toxic sometimes. And I feel like for me, it is about moving away from that definition. So for me, masculinity is actually about tapping into humanity. If there's a conversation about masculinity, that's the conversation I wish we could have a little bit more.
I loved what you said about man of the house. That's a term I've heard over and over and over again. Until now, I don't know how to receive it. Or what does it really mean, man of the house? Does it mean that you make all the decisions and everything is just proxy? What does that entail?
It is a patriarchal construct that in patriarchy, men have to have the power. And because of that idea that you're only powerful if you're the man of the house, the man of work, the man of every place that you are, right? You have to be the man. And most ego battles and competitions between men in the workplace also comes from there, that who's the bigger man, right? Having said that, unfortunately, there is also that burden that is put on men to be providers, where it is a gender construct. It is also an emotional construct that is put on men. As man of the house, it is your responsibility to earn for the family. Now, this is unfortunately something that's been happening for so much time that we have now just accepted it as norm. Women are finally and fortunately now absolutely independent in many, many different places. There's still a lot more work for us to do to make sure that this is happening across social stratas. While women are sometimes judged for being providers and being saying, why are you not nurturers right now? You don't want to have a child.
Exactly.
How can you do that? Or you have a child and you still want to spend time providing. Oh my God, that's really terrible. It's the same conversation even with men. When if men want to be nurturers, that's again looked down upon. If a man says that I actually don't want to spend so much time at work and I want to spend time with my children, as an example, the person is called, oh, you're not working, you're lazy, you are you're clearly not man enough, you're clearly not, if you're not providing, what is your worth in society? And that's the problem, where again, fortunately, in a certain subsection of society, there is a conversation on why and how women are oppressed by patriarchy. We just do not have an understanding. Forget the conversation that men are also burdened by it.
Absolutely, because men die young. And why do they die young? There has to be some sort of explanation, and there's a psychological reason behind it. Men do commit more suicides. That is a reported fact. We can't deny that.
So like you mentioned, women and independence, and that now they're stepping out and they're working, and there is a sense of hyper independence that women are experiencing. But at the same time, it's so very important to understand the soft side of men, right? These are the social constructs that are affecting the psyche of a man, and we don't talk as much. And I believe that your show does bring this conversation out time and again. And that's incredible.
And I think the way you are, Nikhil, just your personality, it exudes authenticity. And that's something that's really rare. And for someone in our country, India, 1.6 billion people, for you to lead this conversation, you're making gentler souls. So people are more empathetic. And kudos to that, Nikhil.
I mean, I don't know how to take compliments.
No, but it's a fact. It's a fact.
I think you're being very generous. let me say it's taken me many years of therapy to get to this place. It's not something that I was born with. I was a very different person 10 years ago. I still would say I was a decent person. It's not that I was I was not animal, and then have turned human.
We'll talk about that.
And pun fully intended. But I did have a very surface level understanding of my own feelings. I had a very surface level understanding on the story that I'm living in my life, or the goals and the milestones that I've been taught to go after as a young boy, and that I really overworked and killed myself to achieve in my early 20s, came from the fact that I did not even know that this is something I want to do. It was just something that I was so deeply conditioned in me that if I don't, by 25, if I don't have this stature, if at 30 I don't have this designation, if at a certain age, in a certain period, I'm not earning this much money, having a certain kind of bank balance, I am not, forget anything else, I don't think I'm making my mother proud. I had to do engineering, and the reason I had to do engineering is because my mother thought that, and I thought as an extension, that if it is the only thing that boys must do. It was just like I started writing from the time I was 13, 14. Okay, I was a published writer. I have done interviews with, Abhi, if I'm doing Be a Man Yaar and I'm doing all of these celebrity conversations, I've been doing this actually since I was 14. So it's been 4 years, I'd interviewed Michael Schumacher before I was 18. I'd interviewed Shah Rukh Khan when I was 21 or 20. So I've done all of this way early. I was like this teenage journalist like that.
Wow.
And I was this one kid who was going across.
Groupie.
Yeah, I was one of those kids who would always land up in, because I was growing up in Bahrain and there was all of these celebrities coming there, Indian celebrities. So I'll be the 14, 15-year-old there and going and saying, I want to speak with you. And they'd humor me. And then and I would then make it a mission to surprise them, that they might be sitting with me because they're like, okay, it's like a teenager who wants to say, okay, fine, let's give him 30 minutes of our time. What do we have to lose? And then I would ask them I would make sure that my research is so impeccable that when I ask them questions, they're just like, who is this person?
Nice.
So some of those relationships I carry even till now. It's so interesting. But yeah, I mean, that was the boy I was, and clearly any other, if our parents would have had this understanding that, okay, this is a boy who's clearly doing very well in a certain field. Natural extension is, let's get him to do journalism, or let's get him to do arts, or let's get him to do entertainment or media or communications. But that was always considered a hobby, even as a published person who had was earning money between 14 to 18 and had all of these credits to my name, etc., all of the interviews to my name. It wasn't even an option in my, neither did I have the understanding that I could do something more. Neither did my parents, and a lot of this again comes down to the fact that boys are supposed to be doing a certain kind of job, because that certain kind of job gets you a certain kind of money, that gets you a certain kind of safety, and that gets you a certain kind of life. So I have lived my entire life for the longest time believing that, living a story that I felt was the story that I needed to live, without ever having a clue about what should my story really be. So I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety when I turned around 29-30. I was working at Yash Raj at that time, ended up quitting, taking therapy, taking a sabbatical, trying to figure my own head out. And that was possibly the best decision I took, because it led me to starting Yuvaa, but more importantly, it led me to having a little bit of a control over my story.
So your show, Be a Man Yaar, it promotes positive masculinity, clearly. And you emerge as this positive representation of men who are openly discussing mental health and therapy. And I just feel like you've mentioned that you had therapy and you're so vocal about it. How has that empowered you?
The bar for all of us as a society is so low that just like a man even saying that I went to therapy is like, oh my God. And this is also, I had that stigma. I couldn't go to therapy for the longest time because I used to feel like if I go there, it's shameful. It would signify that I am broken in some way and I had something to fix. And then now you realize everyone's broken, bro. There's not a single person in the world who's not broken. And it's okay, you know. You need to have that understanding if you're going to heal, if you're going to get better. As I recognized that more, that it took me so much time to take charge of my own narrative and my own story, and if I speak about it, a lot of the people who I love, you know, have gotten empowered from there. And if that is the case, you know, and if I have, again, a privilege of being in media and the privilege of, you know, today having my own company, what is it that I want to do with this privilege? What is it that I want to put out with the work that I'm doing? And how do I want to lead my life, right? And that's where I'm taking that narrative forward. What do I choose to do with my time? I choose to have that conversation that I wish somebody had, you know, for me or with me when I was younger. You know, I didn't have that. So I had to struggle for so many years to get to that place of where I am today, and I still take therapy, you know. So I feel like it's still
it's an
ongoing process.
Yeah,
and I think
amazing.
we as individuals, we are always going to be, you know, overwhelmed with different scenarios in life and different curveballs, and how we navigate through it.
Nikhil made a very important point. He said something that just stuck with me. But I want to take Nikhil back a little. Of course, you worked at Yash Raj, and you were responsible for very successful web series, shows there. Does the film industry in any way perpetrate some sort of anxiety? I'm not, because all of us are part of that industry. But I'm just asking you as someone, because there are a lot of people out of Bombay who want to come in Bombay. And they think it's a rosy picture. It's all about the good moments, celebrity, glamour. But does that epiphany, when that came to you, was it when you were a part of the industry, or was it?
Very much so. I feel like we are very reductive about the role of the impact of entertainment in our lives, in society, in the world around us. We've always kept using these terms called escapism. That, we go to the movies and it's an escape. It is, you know, leave your brains home, or just watch. It's just a movie, etc. It's not. You are, for whatever it's worth, arts have always had an impact. The reason people become artists. Art is, in its essence, a way of reaching out to other people, trying to make human connection with other people, right? And so the moment you say that, Bollywood is not art, it is entertainment, you are trying to give yourself a free pass and say that, you know, I can make anything without any consequence.
Absolutely.
I really liked what you said.
I really liked what you said.
And I think that is very... either you're lying, you know that it's not, it does have an impact, and so you're just going to lie and say, it doesn't have an impact, because it's a great excuse for you to have, or you are you're just ignorant, you know. So I very, very, very strongly disagree with anybody who thinks that art and entertainment do not have an impact, and as a corollary, or, you know, as an extension, even the world around an art and entertainment also have an impact. Absolutely. Because when you're looking at these massive artists on screen, and, you know, they're playing these characters that you end up getting inspired by them. You know, there are fashion.
100%.
If you're looking at if fashion and music and everything else is inspired by art,
and cinema is
too. How can you say that you know, our societal norms are not inspired by it? The way that, I mean, at a very basic level, Yash Raj films have been responsible for Switzerland's, you know, growth as a tourism. You know, Dil Chahta Hai made Goa as the place to go. You know, so of course it has an impact. And at the same time, you know, Yash Chopra films gave this understanding. You know, I mean, there were some very progressive films Yash sir also made, and yet there was also this idea of what is feminine beauty. You know, so. In a really cold place, wearing a sari,
women,
you know,
throwing snowballs across each other.
And those are the kind of conversations we need to also have. You know, that it's great that in a Chandni or a Lamhe, I mean, in Lamhe, you know, you have really progressive ideas of what is a woman's role in society. At the same time, you're also putting a song where a man is wearing 4 levels of clothing, you know, and a woman is wearing a sari. only for the aesthetic reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Not because it is, and she's freezing to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
Most folks in the entertainment industry just kind of dismiss that, saying that, "Arey, but we've just made a film. Like why are people not जिसको जिस तरीके से लेना है वो लेंगे, जिसको इंस्पायर होंगे. अगर हम लोग we play so many all kinds of characters, so it's up to the people. It is the responsibility, but it is both. I feel responsibility lies at both ends. You cannot deny accountability about your films. Sometimes it genuinely might be not something that you might have planned. Like as an example, you could have had films that were Dar, as an example, is a film that led to a lot of, I've read stories of criminals,
Yes.
using that as an excuse and being like obsessive. Now, in that film, at least there is a accountability taken that the obsessive stalker is given death, right? But but at the same time, it's played by Shah Rukh Khan, who is like a dream boy for a lot of people growing up.
Right.
He looks incredible. Bazigar, he's throwing a woman off the building.
Yeah.
And yet when you look at that, you're in so much in love with Shah Rukh Khan, the personality, that you are okay with this action.
And you totally forget the
And
ramifications.
and then when such an action, and then somewhere in your mind it's also like, oh, जब प्यार में पागल होते हैं, रिवेंज में पागल होते हैं, तो ये सब कर सकते हैं. ये हो जाता है नहीं. How can you? Yeah, so we need
justify.
And this is where I've also said the bar is low in certain places. I feel like this is where we put the bar too high and say कि ये सबकी responsibility नहीं है यार. कुछ लोगों को नहीं समझ आता. Entertainment has an impact, and if you agree that it has an impact on fashion, if you agree it has an impact on music, if you agree it has an impact on pop culture, of course you cannot deny the impact it has on societal norms and gender conditionings.
I totally agree with you. Again, the fact why are films being made like that? Let's talk about India. We live in India at this point of time. We're talking in India. It's a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
Men are writing women roles. Women are always ancillary to what the male protagonist is, and even when I think directors or screenwriters are writing, they're considering the fact that the male audience is going to represent most of their audience, and women are almost eliminated out of that equation.
Correct.
So even to write with considering the fact that, hey, my audience is going to be a mixed bag. They're going to be women, they're going to be men, they're going to be trans, because trans have been the butt of all jokes.
Absolutely.
And that's why they're having such a hard time in today's society to be accepted. Either they were mocked or either they were devilish. There wasn't anything else associated.
Or the Muslim villain, the Muslim, for the longest time, the role of a Muslim character in Hindi cinema has been either the villain
Or Chacha.
or the best friend who sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
Like Pran in all those films in Zanjeer mein tha Pran na, I think, where Pran played
Qurbani mein bhi the kya wo?
Qurbani, Pran, in sab Qurbani, Zanjeer, in all of these films you would have this Muslim best friend who's just really kind and really loving, and then ultimately kills himself to protect the hero who happens to be Hindu, right? And or if it's not that, the other thing is a terrorist who also ends up dying. So if that is your representation of any of a community, now Sardars, Sikh people, have always again been the butt of jokes. You've always had that joke around, anybody, Sardar character. Even today, I mean, even until date, I see things and then I, cringe. And I'm just like, why is every single time a person cast as a Sardar, it has to be a funny character?
Yeah, you see that all the
Always,
time.
Sardar
Yes,
character
I
is the
see that.
funny character.
Yeah.
Now you look at Daljit Dosanjh. Look at the man that he is. Look at these people who are taking over the world globally.
Yeah.
He's the coolest Indian, I feel, in today's times.
Super, yeah.
And he's a Sardar,
Yeah.
and he's Sikh.
Yeah.
And what is the representation when
And
you see any Hindi film where there's a Sardar character? Why are you not showing?
Caricature,
It's a comical
But he's so
character.
human.
I love Vicky
living
Kaushal.
authentic.
I think he's just one of the
Yeah.
nicest, sweetest, greenest flags in our society. He's
Yes.
so vocal about his his love for his wife, for his family. He's so in touch with his own emotion.
Yes.
He's,
Wow.
I think, just like a wonderful person, and just one of the rare people I've met in this industry who are just as off camera as they are on
Really?
camera. He's such
Wow.
a
Very grounded.
beautiful
This is
Very
for
person.
us
grounded.
to
Such a
understand
beautiful
from
person.
his
And what an
watched.
actor! Let's,
what an
what
actor.
an
Of course,
actor!
even-
At the tops the list, right?
Yeah.
What an actor!
So there are obviously many incredible folks.
Now this is a question I want to ask you, Nikhil, and it's very important to me at least. Feminists, men are feminists too,
Correct.
right? They are, right?
Yeah.
And the men who are feminists are going to change the world.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. What is your take on men who become feminists? Because I think there's no better person for this answer.
I'll tell you what the thing is. Again, so much of this let me actually, for context, in my chat show, I actually typically avoid having conversations about labels or about opinions, because I feel like opinions can always, everyone has an opinion, and opinion is always misconstrued, especially if you cut out one portion. Now, even though there's a context before it, there's a context
But
after
nobody
it,
knows that
everything is,
context,
no
and
one's
they
caring
just,
about that context, and it's so difficult to have these conversations, and specifically these conversations. When you're talking about toxic masculinity, when you're talking about feminism, these are not meant to be terms that people should be afraid of. You know?
Exactly.
Toxic masculinity, again, if I have to put it in a simple way, there is an, unfortunately, for young boys, they are forced to live and to have an understanding of masculinity that ends up being toxic, because they are not given an opportunity to be empathetic, even to themselves. Forget about the world outside. Boys are told, if a boy hits his foot on a door and is screaming in pain, the boy is told, you cannot scream in pain because you are a boy.
लड़की की तरह रो रहा है,
हाँ,
लड़की की
लड़की की
तरह।
तरह रो रहा है, तो लड़का है, तो कैसे तू complain कर सकता? I have been told that many times growing up, and the moment you start hearing those things, it has resulted in a place where today I cannot cry. I do not have tears in my eyes. It is so difficult for me to have, like, even when I'm overwhelmed with emotion, I can't cry. I can cry when I'm watching a movie. I will have lots of tears there. But if I'm feeling sad about my life, if I'm going through something mental health wise, I just cannot cry. Boys are not allowed to have empathy for themselves.
That's very sad.
When boys cannot have empathy for themselves, how do you expect them to have empathy for the world around them, right? And that is where the idea of toxic masculinity comes from. Feminism is for everyone.
It's for
the
everyone.
The idea of feminism was that everyone is equal.
That's
and
it.
it still is. It's
That's
not
all there
was,
is.
right? That's all there is. Feminism is about equality. Every gender should have the opportunity to live together at an equal stature. But feminism has been weaponized now as a term which could either mean that this is anti-men, or it could mean this is pro a certain kind of woman who's a man-hating woman. And the reason this has come is because, as you also said, dismantling patriarchy is actually a process, or having these changes where we're also saying have empathy towards boys. It's a process. It's not going to have overnight. Feminism did not change much until many
until the third wave.
Decades it took before women could go out and vote, before women could be independent, where they did not have to depend upon the men in their lives. It's taken centuries of conversation. We don't have that conversation about boys and patriarchy. We've just started that. So I imagine another 150 years it might take for it's happening in very, very small ways, but for really this conversation to be a large one, it'll take time. But in this process, what is happening, unfortunately, is boys who are suddenly being told, because women are now independent and they are both providers and nurturers, and they have the choice to be, because that is what feminism also provides. It's like it's a choice. Women can be whatever they want. Men feel like, but I was not given that choice to be a nurturer. I was still told that I have to be a provider, which is also true, unfortunately. Boys are not given that choice growing up. Have you heard of a boy being told, अच्छा तुम्हें home science ले लो ना, अच्छा तुम्हें male nurse बनना है, it's okay, doctor क्या करना बन के, nurse बन सकते हो. These are all things that are looked down upon when men say that they want to do things that are now considered as feminine things. Boys are always shamed for it. And because we don't allow that space for boys to also embrace nurturing, that's where boys need an enemy, and that easy enemy has been, feminism, it's empowered women, and it has actually disempowered us.
Yes.
Which is not the case. It was empowering women, but unfortunately, we just did not recognize during this entire process that we also need to have the conversation about if you're empowering women to be providers, we can also empower men to be nurturers.
Super, very well said. Hey, all you beautiful people out there. In no way are we dictating what men and women should be, but we're just trying to create a more empathetic society by sharing our views upon it. And here's the point. The existential condition of everything in our lives is transitory, yet we form attachment to things as if they will last forever. What is a man is a question that will continue to evolve just as humanity does. So this is our take on it, and of course it's going to evolve as time goes by. What is relevant today might be archaic tomorrow. So bear with us as we try to become better human beings. I find sometimes tradition, that word tradition, it should be obsolete really. Sometimes, okay, there was a tradition in our country. I'll speak from my religion first.
Sure.
Although I don't believe in it totally, but yeah. 4 marriages. Come on, man. I mean, what is that? That kind of shit that you're kind of... And of course, I do applaud our Prime Minister because he kind of dismantled it, right? Yeah. At least I think, but I don't know what's happening, but yeah. Secondly, the thing that tradition, of course, historically, sati also, right? Aapka husband उड़ गया, आप भी लुढ़क जाओ. मतलब ये 2 चीज़ें मुझे समझ में नहीं आई कभी. एक अच्छा, मैंने फिर ये मुल्लाओं से बात करी, मुल्ला भी आते हैं, ये भी ऐसे था. ये बताइए मुझे अब ये क्या हो रहा है, ये 4 नहीं मर्द को इतना लगता है. मैंने कहा क्या लगता है? अच्छा ये these are the conversations मतलब this is what they were justifying. And Nikhil, sorry to sound, but this is the exact language that he spoke to me in. And then okay, when we were kids, I don't know, we were never religious. Let's keep that out of the perspective. But I don't know what some family members told my mom, that your kids they're not even religious. They don't read the holy book. So they said, okay, we probably should arrange someone for them to come and read the holy book. Anyway, that guy who was the mullah was explaining to my brother the kind of nipples my brother will get in heaven. And I'm listening there. I'm like, don't you see me here? Like, what the hell? This is the conversation that we were having. And my innocent brother, he probably didn't even understand any of that. Because, he's just and he was really he's still an innocent kid. Usko ye bata raha hai mullah. तो उसके बाद से उस मुल्ले को हमने दफ़ा कर दिया. उस ज़िंदगी भर हमने ये सब चीज़ें नहीं करी. I'm just saying, we protected ourselves. Because, as I said, I find tradition a very dangerous word, Nikhil. Yeah. And are there some traditions like that even existing, like in India, that you think that of course you know more of?
I mean, there's so many, right? And I feel like it's big things, it's small things, it's all kind of things. And the thing is that we have to recognize that all of these were in many ways, like as an example, let me put it in a very, very different way. That of course it is wrong for traditionally, a man to be given the power to be like, oh, you can marry as many women as you want, and they will, again, you use the word servitude. In many ways, they are going to be serving you, while you feed you bear the fruits of that and then go to heaven one day, etc., right? That's one way of looking at it. But then again, it's not so much that the idea of folks who want to have multiple relationships is today, called polyamory. Yeah. But it's consensual. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And the difference between something that is consensual and something that is forced is where tradition comes in. The boundaries of tradition are a problem only, not because, and again, I think as progressive people, we need to have that understanding that anything that is happening with consent between any consenting adults is fine. No matter what.
An open relationship.
Yeah, and whether it is because you believe in a certain kind of... but if you don't understand, and this is where, there's a whole debate about Karwa Chauth, right? And there's so many layers to it. It's so hard to have these conversations because everything is a layer, right? lot of people, and feminist men, women, everybody kind of says that Karwa Chauth is a very regressive thing because why should a woman hold a fast for a man? And yes, in that sense, why should the man also not be fasting with the woman, right? Why should only the women be praying for that I'm going to, starve myself because I have to pray for the well-being of my husband, versus the husband also saying that I also want the well-being of my wife. I also want you in the next 7 janams, etc. Right? You can choose to recognize that this is a traditional patriarchal idea, and yet we want to do it because we find it romantic between us, and that is our choice.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it is also feminist that if you recognize
Choosing it.
and choosing it.
We stand at the threshold of a new era where a man, I think, is not predetermined by the norms that are set before him or after him. I think that goes for women also. I think women also they can define themselves, and I think we have entered that era.
Yeah.
And I think, Nikhil, to a great degree, people like yourself are responsible for waking and awakening people up.
As I said, I think in the beginning as well, and this is not humility, this is not, I feel like this is just, I know that I'm still learning. I know that I don't have, there's always more to learn. While I have that conversation where I'm also, during the conversation, I speak a lot about my own life, and so that they also feel a little bit more comfortable in opening about what their lives. And yet, I know that my job there is not to be the person speaking, but to be the person listening. In all podcasts, you see the host of the podcast being the person who speaks the most, I think sometimes, and I feel like that's just very odd. But your job genuinely sometimes is to just provide other people spaces to listen. I'm actually a lot more comfortable with that.
Mainly my best friends are men, and they're very nice people, and I love their company. I'll be honest with you, I like their company more than I like...
Sure.
Yeah, okay, women's company, but still. But this kind of conversation that you're having, that we're having, I would love them to partake in it, because they also ask me, and I can't be as eloquent as you in telling them things about themselves, because it comes from being a man as well, right?
True.
And Be a Man Yaar,
to a great extent,
is doing that, because it's giving you the male perspective on a issue that is predominantly male oriented. So I just wish that they also, you have to, the more your voice amplifies, it's better for people like us who call themselves feminists. Our job is easier, right? If you're a great ally. You're an ally. I see you as an ally. So that's the thing.
No, that I would really hope that more men tune into the conversation, because that is the intent. I feel like men have always, and again, not because of any malice, but there has always been a burden put on women by men to be to do the emotional labor for men. That I'm feeling bad, so I need a woman in my life to listen to me. I'm feeling low, so I need to go to either my mother or my
that
sister,
is so cool.
my
I never
partner.
thought of this the way you've just put it across. You've given a perspective here. Wow, emotional labor, and that's what they're always looking at a woman for, right?
Yeah, and again, it comes from the fact that when you're growing up, it is your mother who is the empathetic person in your home. It's your father is not typically expressive, so you can't, when you're feeling even bad about something, or when you're feeling bad, the first person to notice is the woman, right? So you are conditioned in your mind to think that it's only women who are empathetic, and hence I need women in my life if I need to ever express. So even if you might have great friends as men, you will go to war for them, but you will not cry in front of them, unless you are drinking. अगर दारू है तब आप बोल सकते हो I love you, I am going to die for you, but then next morning you wake up and just like it was cool, no, it was all great. So it's like that's something I feel like, and the reason for Be a Man Yaar is to get men to recognize that two men can also sit across and have empathetic, vulnerable conversations, and it does not make us less of a man.
And not a man to man, but a human to human.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't need to, and a lot of the frustration of men also right now, that culture of men's right activist, or incel culture as it calls, Stigma culture, it comes from this idea that, men don't need women, and men can do without it, etc., etc. Women are the enemy. the reason you feel that is because women today have communities of their own.
Yeah.
They're supporting each other.
The yaya hoods.
Yeah, it's like, so women are creating these sisterhoods. They're creating these tribes where they don't need to depend upon men. And now men suddenly feel a loss in their lives that women don't depend upon us, so where do we go? You speak among to yourselves. And don't speak about why women are bad.
Yeah.
You speak just about your feelings that you would ordinarily talk to a woman. If there's no women available, you have men available. Why are you so afraid of talking to another man? And the reason for that is because we are afraid of judgment from men, because we also judge men. And the moment we stop doing that, we will be able to create more spaces where men can talk to each other without seeming awkward. Like till date, it is so funny for me that when I send I am very expressive on WhatsApp, right? So I do a lot of emojis. I do like hearts and smiles or whatever smileys are. And the men who are my dear friends, I say, love you, I love you, man. Or love you, whatever. I say this. And very often, like, even my most expressive friends, they will probably say, you too. They will still not say, I love you. And sometimes I start calling all my friends and being like, say I love you. Why can't you say I love you as words and have to say love you too? Or no, say just you too. Say love you too at least. And they are just like ha ha ha. And they still, it's so difficult for men to even sometimes say to other men on message that I love you. Because it's such a, how do I say it? It's like, you're just not normalizing these things. You are making emotions such, either emotion is like, if you express to another woman, it means you want to sleep with her. If you express to another man, then you're not man enough. Emotion in itself is so, there's so much stigma that we put on emotion, and the expression of emotion and the expression of love. Love cannot, the only reason that love is always seen as this, romantic thing is because any other love is there's just so much stigma put to it.
And no value attached to it, probably. Cinematically also, probably,
And we need to take that away. Love can be all kinds. It can be with any gender, and it can be, it doesn't necessarily need to be about sexual intimacy, You can be physically intimate with all genders without it having sexual connotations, and you can be as expressive with any gender without it meaning that you are in love with them.
Exactly.
And love is not a bad word. I love that word. That's why we're like called Love Lingo, right? That's why we chose it, right? I love that word. I can't.
Nikhil, what does love mean to you? We're talking so much about love.
That's a good one.
Wow, what does it mean to me?
Caught you off the cuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for hours on like gender. Love is not about a person or a place, etc., but it is about an emotion inside of you which makes you feel peaceful. Right. I really, really do believe that. I feel like love does not need to be about people sometimes. And it doesn't even need to, I love movies or I love this place, etc. We sometimes use love so casually, and sometimes we attach all of this emotion to it. But I feel like love is always about the feeling of safety, the feeling of peace and contentment. I feel like for me, I love things, people, experiences, and for me that is love, where I am able to be most relaxed. Like such a small little thing happened, and and because I think about things, I started thinking about this thing. Like I'd gone to last year, visit my mom in Bahrain, and I just finished all of these. Season 1, this was right after season 1 of Man Yaar, and I'd gone home, and I had not again slept properly in very, very long, etc. I was still working on that day. I remember it was like a midday thing, and I was working from home from Bahrain while I was doing work in India, etc. And my mom called me, and she was about to go to sleep in the afternoon. She was taking an afternoon nap, and I just said that, can I just lie down for you for 5-10 minutes? I have another call after this. I woke up after like 5 hours.
Wow.
I had all missed calls, etc. My mom didn't wake me up, and I didn't wake up. And then, when I woke up, I was like, first you're just like, wait, what? How did this happen? Because I have not had an afternoon nap where I've slept more than maybe 30 minutes in the longest time, and suddenly 4 or 5 hours. And then first I thought it was exhaustion and it's whatever, And then I realized that there is an emotional safety that I felt there.
Wow.
The safety that I felt just lying next to my mom and, knowing that it's okay.
So beautiful.
I'm just my mom is next to me, and I can sleep with peace.
I miss
not
my
being
mom.
worried about
Amazing.
anything else in the world.
It's amazing
you know?
that you say this,
Yeah.
that what you share with your mom, because whenever I go visit my dad,
Yeah.
I might go visit him maybe once in 10 days or whenever I can, as much as I try to go see him. It's always happened, and for the last couple of years that I've been living on my own, whenever I go visit him, there is not a time when I am sitting on the couch and I feel so comfortable that I just pass out.
Yeah.
And he's like, go and lie down. I'm like, are you sure, Papa? No, I don't like to lie. No,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And I just like, I don't know what happens. It's like some kind of release, some kind of safety net.
Yeah.
You can say that, but it's just something. It's like the most amazing thing that I experience. And this is like a record. Like every time this happens, not a single time when it hasn't.
Yeah. Love is peace, right?
Yeah,
That's what I'm
it
saying.
is.
Love is the feeling of being safe.
Yeah, it's a safe
And,
space.
Yeah, it's a safe space, and that's where, and I think I look out for that. I look for like people who make me feel safe. I look for places that I feel.
And your body and your
peaceful.
mind tell you, right? You're
Obviously,
you're feeling always.
Anxiety, on the other hand, because I've lived with clinical anxiety, and now I'm fortunately in a much better place. But even when I have anxiety, it is the opposite. It's the feeling of being unsafe in some way, right? And that's where anxiety comes from. So it's the opposite of love for me is anxiety instead of hate, right? It's like, oh shit, I'm like, oh, clearly that I'm not feeling peaceful. I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling. And I keep a tab out for that. Sometimes I get anxious when I'm meeting people, and then I'm like, okay, I feel.
I go through that too. I feel like anxious, really anxious,
Correct.
but then it just kind of mellow. So okay, I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of episodes of this show, and I've been anxious in all of them. But after except today,
I can vouch for that
She can
because
vouch
I
for
know
that,
Ursula.
I was
All
like,
the episodes
just-
in today's episode, there's like a 360.
No, because I said, Nikhil is such an amazing guy, and if I'm reading him correct, he's authentic. I don't have to worry, even if I'm not, whatever I am, it's all gonna be okay with him. So and I think you did bring that energy into the room,
Yes,
and
yes.
we're all.
So
I really
I
appreciate
too have
it. Thank
social
you.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Let's face it. But really, today's episode and the way, like when Ria came into the studios and it was so
Your
nice.
demeanor, I mean, your
And
team
then
also.
With you coming into the studios, and we probably did have a feeling about how you are going to be from what we watched, and it was just so authentic.
Incredible.
Such a good human being, and you're so modest, and we can go on and on and on.
Please don't.
No, but I'm just trying to
But
be
you know,
honest with you.
sometimes-
I'm being honest
you're
with
being-
you.
I really
No, but
appreciate
the
it.
thing
You're
is, we
being
are
too
in
kind.
awe
Thank you.
of the human being that you are. We're literally in
And
awe
the work
of
that
you.
you're doing.
Yeah, and
I
the
really
work that
appreciate
And
you're
I think you're going to change the India to a great extent. You're going to make empathy in fashion. I think you're going to
Oh,
make
wow.
empathy in fashion, and that's going to be, as I said, it's going to be communicable. It's going to be a communicable disease. I hope so.
Wow.
And
But before we wrap up, we'd love to know, Nikhil, if there is a book that has shaped your life, a book from your childhood that has shaped your perspective over the years,
Yeah.
that you would like to share with us and let us
Yes,
know.
I do
of.
have one. I brought it with me. This is a book that I
Wow.
read very recently, actually, just a year and a half. It's called The Anthropocene Reviewed. It's by John Green. So the book is about, John Green used to be a reviewer for a literary magazine where he used to review, and then he started noticing around him that rating culture has now become everywhere. It's become prevalent, right? He started a podcast actually called The Anthropocene Reviewed during the pandemic where he started rating human experiences.
Wow.
And it is the most beautiful book
oh my God, I can't
ever
wow.
written. Yeah, it
That's
is so
the first time
generous.
I've heard anything
It is
like.
I love it. This is like, I think.
Can I see
yeah,
that? And I
please,
would
please
like to
do.
show this to our camera. So this book is going to be going, the copies of this book is going to be going into our library. We have a foundation which is called EVOL, Every Voice on Love. And through our foundation, we want to positively impact underprivileged children.
Wow.
We want to foster the love for reading and to help them grow and, expand their imaginations through books like these that have been recommended by great personalities like yourself, Nikhil. Thank you so
And
much.
become gentler souls and more in love with everything
souls
and kind
gentler
souls.
souls. And thank you so much for being here with us and for saying yes to us on Love Lingo. And, we really appreciate, and we've had a conversation with our team about the exchange of the email thread, and it's been so beautiful, the conversation, the exchange,
Even in every aspect
in
of
every
your,
aspect.
it's just been so
it
beautiful.
has meant so much to us.
And the credit goes to you.
Absolutely. So thank you for being here and for sharing your insightful experiences with us and for illuminating our lives, and we strive to be better human beings.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Nikhil.
much for having me again. I know it's taken some time for us to do this, but just like you, I also had a really, it's been a very chaotic few weeks, and I just felt really present in the last 2-3 hours. I felt really comfortable. So all credit to you for that, and thank you for all your generosity. I'm not good with compliments, but I really appreciate you saying all the very, very kind things that you did about me. Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you,
I'm
Nikhil.
so glad. Thank you. Thank you for watching and listening to yet another episode of Love Lingo. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast from. Also, do not forget to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel Love Lingo, and we're also on Instagram, Love Lingo.
Love Lingo.
Cheers. Bye. Cheers.